the goal is important because sometimes having like a numbered goal like this, it is going to it's going to push you to kind of come up with new ideas. Mm-hmm. Because when we looked at that goal of 3,000 people in groups to 2,300 people in groups in 2025, we had the vision for the year. And as we lined up that vision for the year, the goal for the year, and then what happened the previous year, that's when we realized, man, I don't think that just our regular community groups play is going to get us to where we're trying to go.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to say that because to me, that's kind of the genesis of new ideas. Mm-hmm. This is not a random new idea, but this is, hey, here's the vision. Here's what we are trying to do to go after that vision. We see that there's maybe a gap.
Yeah.
You know, like if we just run the normal play, I don't know that we're going to see 3,000 people in groups.
This is Breaking Barriers, where we help pastors and churches grow so that they can go.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Breaking Barriers podcast. My name is Pastor Bobby and I'm here with Pastor Brant. And today we're going to do something a little bit different in today's podcast. A lot of times with just the podcast, we're kind of bringing you guys into, just stuff that we've done for a long time and just sharing principles and best practices. But today what I want to do is I want to bring you into, what it looks like to try something new in the church. So I'll just talk about that generally, and then we'll just talk real specifically of something that we are trying across the summer of 2026. And so the first thing I would say about kind of like thinking about new ministries within the church or, trying a new, program or season or something like that. A lot of times we talk about, I feel like churches many times maybe give up on stuff too quickly. Maybe we'll try something and then, we feel like it maybe doesn't work. And so we kind of give up on it. And so I would say most of the time when it comes to thinking about stuff like this, I would encourage churches, hey, before you're trying a bunch of new stuff, like you need to, the stuff that you're trying to do, the vision that you have, the ministries that you're trying to do, the cyclical stuff, around big days and Easter and Christmas and Kids Week. The first thing I would encourage people is you need to give those things like time, because some of the fruit that we're seeing now around, how we're thinking about Christmas and Easter or how we're thinking about our college ministry, a lot of times those, it's going to take 5 years for you to really see momentum and success.
Yeah.
And what a lot of churches end up doing is, man, they try something, maybe they hear something on the Breaking Barriers podcast and they try it one time. Maybe it's, hey, we're going to think about our year in giving differently this year. We're going to try something new. And maybe they don't quite get the momentum that they want and they kind of give up on it too soon. And so, I would just say a lot of success comes from, you got to really give things time, I would say a lot of times it's going to take 3 to 5 years to really gain momentum around anything, whether it's missions or church planning so I don't know if, before we get into something new that we're trying this year, I don't know if you want to just kind of speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think the concept of some of that is know who you are and identify that clearly. We talked about that on various podcasts here, but you're better off doing less well,
right, than
trying to do more. We can almost become like the cat with like the shiny object,
right?
And it's like, man, we keep chasing after the shiny object as if it's going to fix something or it's going to create something that a lot of times is found in just the faithfulness of sowing the ground over and over and over again on those core things that really matter. And then when you do that really well over time, you've built credibility and you built some momentum, and those things are going well in a way in which you can now think about something new that fits in with what you're doing, rather than if someone's not careful, a leader can begin just activating on a lot of different things, and then they actually don't do anything well, and they end up losing credibility as a leader because they haven't established those things that they're actually doing well. But once those things are established, I do think you have opportunity to innovate in a lot of ways, but doing it from a place of health, to be able to grow on something rather than a like impulsive, we've got to jump on a lot of different things.
Yeah. So it's funny. I wanted to preface a podcast on how to try something new with just this idea of the majority of the things I think churches should be doing should not be new.
Yeah.
Should be, stuff that we're trying to do multiple years in a row with excellence, consistency, having the vision. Even though we have a lot of stuff going on at Mercy Hill, we just got out of a meeting earlier where we were talking about the vast majority of things we're doing, they're predictable.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, man, they're on the calendar every single year.
Yeah.
We're doing Ascent Weekend at the beginning of the year, and then we're really gearing up for Easter, and we're thinking about the summer with our city project and college students, Kids Week, thinking about student camp. We're going to the fall with, back to school weekend and regroup. And we're coming to the end of the year, running a generosity play that's very similar to what we do every single year. So I would just say, man, 90% of the stuff that I would encourage churches to do would be the same stuff every year.
Yeah.
Just consistently doing those. But I just thought it would be cool to bring you guys into what does it look like to try something new? Because most of the stuff we're doing and sharing, it's not stuff that's new. It's stuff that we have consistently done over a long period of time.
Yeah.
And we're pretty confident saying, hey, we've seen this at Mercy Hill. We don't know that it'll work in your church, but this is something that has worked for us. Yeah. And so we just want to share it with you. And I just want to, bring you guys in today to a discussion of what it looks like to try something new. Like where does the vision come from for trying something new? Like what does it look like to communicate that to the staff, to communicate it to the church, to say, this may not be forever, but we're going to try this right now. And so we're kind of in one of those seasons right now. So I'm just going to, preface by saying, take this with a grain of salt. We're not doing this podcast to say you should repeat this particular idea that we have, but more just to bring you in what it looks like to maybe every now and again try something new. Because you want to consistently repeat a lot of the same things, but you don't want to be so closed off that you can never have a new idea.
Yeah.
Because, ministry changes, culture changes. There are going to be times when it's like, hey, let's give it a crack. Let's try something new that we've never done before. And I just want to walk through, like, how did that come about? So maybe just, Brant, if you could just take a moment and just share what it is that we're trying to do this summer. We're right in the middle of this thing. And then after you talk about what it actually is, I'll kind of back up and talk about, where the genesis of this idea came from and how we kind of went about trying to roll it out.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's nothing revolutionary or
Right.
anything. I mean, churches are doing this all over the place, but we are doing something we are calling Summer Studies, which is a men's and women's Bible study. So gender-specific Bible study over the summer. And there's a lot of just kind of reasoning that we'll talk about, as we work our way through the podcast. But man, the idea behind it is simply like, man, where you want, with the people that you want, when you want to do it. And trying to get our people on mission to be able to invite people that are not currently involved in group at our church to take a step into biblical community. And so many churches are doing this across the nation in different ways. The way that our church operates is we do sermon-based small groups throughout the year. And so we do a session in the fall, a winter session, and a spring session. They run 8 to 10 weeks each. And then we typically take the summers off. And so this year, we are offering these gender-specific Bible studies that are going on all over our area. Some of them at campuses, people's houses, jobs, CrossFit gyms all over the place. To be able to connect people that are not currently connected into community and be able to also see leaders raised up around Mercy Hill for the sake of continuing to make an impact.
Yeah, love it. So let's back up a little bit because I think this is really helpful when you're thinking about a new idea.
Yeah.
For us, this really started with the vision. And I think most new ideas need to come out of the vision because like in the church, on your staff, you're going to have a lot of people with a ton of different ideas. There's kind of, the bigger you get, you have more staff, you have more people at the church, you have more ministry opportunity, you have more people coming saying, do this, I have this idea, in the congregation, leaders, people on your staff. And so the first thing I would encourage anybody listening, if you're thinking about a new idea, it's going to work best when it comes out of the vision of where the church is going.
Yeah.
And this is where the summer studies came up for us. So we've shared this before, but a lot of churches do this, but we kind of have a vision for the year that we're going after, that it's not changing the vision of the church. It's not changing our flywheel. It's not changing the overall direction of the church, but it's kind of a 10% emphasis on, hey, based on our leadership team, based on Pastor Andrew, what is something that we want to focus on for the year?
Yeah.
And it could be, just a host of things. I remember going back during COVID when the church was kind of coming back to gathering, it was like, hey, let's focus on this year, just this idea of like white hot worship.
Mm-hmm.
And, other years we've focused on a host of different things.
Yeah.
This upcoming year, we're probably going to focus on this idea of send me out of Isaiah 6. And it's like, this is not the whole vision of the church. It's just like a 10% emphasis.
Mm-hmm.
So backing up to, I would say maybe summer of 2025, fall of 2025, we started thinking about, hey, one of the emphasis for the upcoming year, kind of our vision for the year was going to be this idea of fortify the family.
Yeah.
I think people can see in culture, like, man, families are just being broken down.
Mm-hmm.
You have parents don't know what to do with their kids. They don't know how to train their kids. You have this epidemic of, gender issues and divorce and just all this different stuff. And so we just felt like, hey, this idea of like, man, Joshua, me and my family, we're going to serve the Lord. So we were going to have an emphasis this year of focusing on fortifying the family.
Yeah.
So that's where it all started. It started with just the high level vision. Hey, let's bring this to our church. Let's kind of spiritually pastor and lead our church in this direction. And then after we kind of had that vision, we started thinking about, okay, what is it going to require to see people take steps to be able to fortify the family?
Yeah.
And so,
well, I love what you said about that. I think it's super important just to kind of double click on that, of this idea of the vision for the year. It is kind of just a focus within what you're already doing.
Correct.
Versus, I think if we're not careful, what can be communicated from leaders sometimes is this is a new vision.
Church is taking a U-turn.
This is a new direction. And I think it's just really important as we communicate vision, leaders to your business or to your church is, hey, this is something we want to focus on as we go after, like for Mercy Hill, we're making disciples and multiplying churches. As we go after the mission and the vision of seeing 5,000 baptized and 500 baptizers sent out by 2032, we believe that this is the focus for the next year, the vision that we're going to, of being able to see that moving forward. I just think it's really important that leaders clarify that, because if not, man, you end up having leaders that will talk back to you, like the people that talk back to you and say, man, I feel like you're going in a whole new direction. And it may be that we're not doing a great job of communicating how this ties to, no, we're going in the same direction. We think we need to focus on that this year. So I just want to double click on that for a minute. Yeah.
So kind of piggybacking on what you're saying, when we had this vision of fortifying the family for 2026, idea of Joshua, all of that, we started with not new ideas, but man, how do we emphasize this stuff just with our regular day-to-day ministries?
Mm-hmm.
How do we take what we're already doing with kids ministry, with college ministry, with students, with groups, with sermon series? You have the opportunity, like, man, we're preaching every single weekend.
Mm-hmm.
That was a starting place for all this. Not any new ideas, but just like, man, how do we take this emphasis and really put it into what we're already doing?
Yeah.
So then on top of that, we had a goal. It's always good when you have a vision to have some sort of measurable goal.
Yep.
Man, making the goal like, hey, basically what by when is the way I think of goals a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, something we can measure and see, could we hit this by the end of the year? So Pastor Andrew had the kind of goal coming out of this vision. Hey, if we're going to fortify the family, a big way that this is going to happen is, man, to have strong families, you got to have a strong church, and to have a strong church, you need strong families.
Yep.
And so people need to be part of the body of Christ. People need to be in relationships. People need to be in community. You can't do this alone by yourself. You need other parents around you. It's just like, man, this is how God's created us.
Yeah.
So we had the goal of, hey, it would be really awesome to see 3,000 unique people in community this year.
Yeah.
So the starting place was just our regular community groups. Like, man, there's a big opportunity for people that are not already in groups to like, man, we got to really try to help people get into groups.
Well, and it was kind of jumping from the year that we were in. We had seen so much growth at the gathering too. And so the idea of our flywheel, wanting to see, keeping to the vision, wanting to see people take their next steps as they jumped on the serve teams, but take their next steps into community.
So, once the goal is important, because sometimes having like a numbered goal like this, it is going to it's going to push you to kind of come up with new ideas. Because when we looked at that goal of 3,000 people in groups, do you remember what the previous year was? 2,000?
It was right at 2,300 total, I think.
So 2,300 people in groups in 2025. We had the vision for the year. And as we lined up that vision for the year, the goal for the year, and then what happened the previous year, that's when we realized, man, I don't think that just our regular community groups play is going to get us to where we're trying to go.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to say that, because to me, that's kind of the genesis of new ideas. This is not a random new idea, but this is, hey, here's the vision. Here's what we are trying to do to go after that vision. We see that there's maybe a gap.
Yeah.
Like if we just run the normal play, I don't know that we're going to see 3,000 people in groups.
Yeah.
And having that goal is kind of the thing that can push on you a little bit,
Yeah.
to say, man, we could just run the normal play, but we've stated this goal of where we want to go. It's probably not going to get us there.
Well, and I think for like leaders thinking about like setting goals, it can be very easy. It could have been very easy for Pastor Andrew to have just said, man, we had 2,300, around 2,300. Let's set the goal for, 2,600, and I think that's reasonable, and we can run the same play and, reasonable shot at it. But leaders being willing to push yourself and pray and set bigger goals than what you feel like maybe you even initially want to set. It actually is what you said. It's what drives the creativity and the ideation of your team and the leaders around your church to say, hey, we've got to think of a new way to do this, which can make the whole thing better.
Right. So all of this, what we're talking about, is kind of what spurred the new idea.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't think we're going to be able to get to 3,000 people in groups. Over the years, we've done different stuff with like, men's groups and women's groups, but we've never really had like a men's ministry or a women's ministry, a singles ministry. We've just focused on community groups.
Yep.
Get in a group, man, woman, whatever, single, married, empty nester, just get in a community group.
Yeah.
But this year, seeing that we didn't think we were going to be able to hit the goal, we're like, hey, people have always asked, man, I would love to do a men's study or a women's study or whatever. Let's come up with kind of a new idea that's going to help get brand new people into community.
Yeah.
And, our church has grown a lot with new people over the last couple of years. And so Pastor Andrew really he kind of dreamed it up. Like, man, let's not change any of the ministry we're doing. So it's not like, because some churches can make a mistake here and they can say, okay,
let's revamp the whole group's ministry.
We don't have enough people in groups, so let's start over. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's scrap everything.
Yeah.
And I would just say, man, most of the time you don't want to do that.
Well, because generally, if it has grown over time, something is working with it. So it's like the idea of like just start the whole thing over. It's like, no, like work off of the thing that's working.
Right. So this is kind of just an add-on. It's not like a change of what we're doing.
Yeah.
You already said it. We do kind of 3 big semesters for groups. You get into a new year, there's kind of a winter semester.
Yeah.
There's a semester that happens kind of after Easter up to summer, and then there's like a fall semester.
Yeah.
We give our people, pretty much take the summer off. And so we had a gap there to say, hey, there is an opportunity here. If we don't think we're going to be able to hit the goal, what can we do over the summer that's a little bit different?
Yeah.
And so Pastor Andrew came up with this idea of summer studies, and you kind of walked us through a little bit, but kind of some of the really big principles with summer studies was like, hey, this is not like a normal community group.
Yeah.
We kind of want to make this a lower bar for people.
Yeah.
You know, because if you're new, and we're really trying to get new people into community with this Fortify the Family, like if you're new, some people, if they have a church background, they're like, okay, I got no issue, man, showing up to a new person's house, getting a community group for 10 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
Other people, they're like, man, that just feels like a bit of a stretch. You know, they may not say that, but so this idea of summer studies was, and I'll let you go, you can go over a little bit more, but it's like, hey, let's create something that's a little bit more low bar.
Yeah.
That will allow a ton of new people to jump into groups, but actually a lot of new people to lead groups.
Yeah.
You know, not going through our normal kind of leadership pipeline that they would to lead a community group, because we're not going to change that.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of a high bar to lead a community group. We have quite a bit of a pipeline of training and all that stuff. Let's create something different for a short period of time.
Yeah.
To allow a bunch of, talk about how many new leaders we've even gotten to be willing to do this.
Man, it's been pretty awesome. I think kind of the principle of this, I'll share some of the information about it or data about it, but I think that some of the principle of this is some of the, you got to try something. And sometimes like when you try something, the momentum that you find in the people will tell you like how well this is landing or not.
Right.
Man, as we were talking about it and praying about it and everything, didn't know exactly what, was going to look like. And I sat down with Andrew, talked with him a little bit, and we're just like, man, he was like, man, we got to have 600 new people in summer studies. He's like, man, I just think like we got to hit that number. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, that's a big number. And it kind of even like for me for a second, I was like, okay, that's a heck of a lot of people. How are we going to do this? But what it began, he kind of pushed us to think bigger with this than even what maybe it began as, and to ideate around what could it look like. So we began to even frame it in a way of, man, this is not like, the goal is not to go with your community group to do a summer study. The goal is, and Andrew led in this from a vision standpoint, but the goal is like for you to go do this when you want to, where you want to, with the people you want to, super flexible. And we're praying that you would lead it, and that you need to be praying for 2 new people that are not connected to community at Mercy Hill to jump in and be a part of this summer study with you. We gave inviter cards. We even did, this kickoff, which I think was pretty pivotal moment for these leaders, where we got all the leaders together. We gave them some training, but we also led them in prayer, and they wrote on Post-it notes the names of the people that they were going to invite to their summer studies, and then brought them to the altar to pray over them. And so just super missionally minded and thinking bigger, with these summer studies. And we through this, it's pretty crazy. I mean, we've seen, over 80 leaders that are not currently in community group. So that's not like 80 people attending that are not in community. It's like 80 people leading a summer study. They may be on a serve team. They may have been around a church for a while. And there was a vetting process and everything with them. But there's 80 people that are leading a summer study that have not been in a community group. And there's, we're somewhere around 600 people that have not been in a community group this year that are attending a summer study, signed up for a summer study. And so it's one of those things where it's like, man, we've been praying for big goals around this, but we also didn't know what it was going to turn into. And then I think that is a little bit of this like we're doing something new. There's a risk to it. And I think leaders have to be willing to take the risk sometimes, and push ourselves to be able to say, Andrew saying from the stage, hey, we're praying for 600 new people to jump into these community groups. There's a risk to that. But it's also this kind of, preparing the jars mindset that we've talked about in various podcasts. Yeah.
So when you're doing something new, you want to involve your whole staff. And so you got to figure out like, okay, what does the leader own? So like Pastor Andrew, for example, with the vision, and what does the person that's going to be a couple layers lower in the organization, that's going to be like on the ground, helping to facilitate the new idea. Like what do they own?
Yeah.
So a lot of times I think through kind of 3 categories, vision, strategy, and tactics. And so the vision is like, man, I'm not going to give you 1,000 things about the vision, but I am going to kind of give you some really high level, hey, we're doing summer studies. This is not putting pressure on any of our current community group leaders. I'm going to give you 3 or 4 things about what it is we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And, that's the responsibility of the lead pastor, the executive pastor, the leadership team.
Yeah.
And so Pastor Andrew did a great job of that. Like, hey, this is how many new people we want to get. This is what these groups are. We had a couple like taglines, like, man, you can meet anywhere. And, real basic stuff, man. Guys are going to study this book. Women are going to study this book.
Yeah.
The next level you kind of move into is like the strategy. Like, okay, we're not getting like way, way into the tactics of like, man, exactly how you sign up and all that. But the strategy is like, man, we're going to kind of think of some big level principles of like how we're going to go about this.
Yeah.
And so, we just had some stuff like, man, we don't want there to be some crazy long, like leadership training pipeline.
Yeah.
Because that's going to kind of undermine the vision of like what this is.
Yeah. Ease of leadership, ease of sign up, too,
right?
Like for the attendee. Like,
so we probably had 5 or 6 like high level principles around the strategy.
Yeah.
And because the actual goal was pretty important, we had some, we had a lot of strong thoughts on like, man, do these groups take attendance? Do they not take attendance?
Yeah.
We didn't want them to be burdensome, like not burdensome, but like with our community groups, they take attendance every week. There's a big process that's already kind of created.
Yeah.
We felt like, man, if we try to replicate that process, it's going to kind of undermine what these groups are.
Yeah.
And so, it wasn't just Pastor Andrew at that point. It's kind of, our executive team, our leadership team, and then even some of the, campus pastors and people that are over the groups helping to think about the strategy. And then lastly, you got to make sure like you don't micromanage people. One layer underneath that is the actual tactics.
Yeah.
Like, man, how are we actually going to go about doing this?
Yeah.
And I think at each level of, the vision, the strategy, and the tactics, you're going to want to be handing off leadership to other people.
Totally.
So people know what they're owning.
Yeah.
And man, this is never perfect. Doing new ideas, new stuff. There's always this question of like, man, who owns it? You know what I mean? Like, who's accountable? Who's responsible?
Yeah.
Who's informed? And as we go down each layer, we're trying to hand off leadership, but there has to be clarity before you can ever do that.
Yeah.
So I would just say like, the point of us kind of discussing this today is not so much that you would repeat, doing summer studies, but like, what does a case study look like in a pretty well-established church of trying something new?
Well, and I think too, it's even in reviewing some of that stuff too, and thinking through like, man, we've just been so excited to see what God has done through it. We had no idea, praying big prayers, but then also beginning to think through, well, this has been pretty cool. Like, what could God do through this over the next season? Is this something we do next year? Is this something that begins to be part of our culture? As we thought about summer study specifically, now beginning to really think through and putting together a plan, strategy for taking, how do we help people become leaders at Mercy Hill? Well, is the pathway for that somebody, leading a summer study that then there's follow-up to a next step for them towards becoming a group leader in the future? Same thing of moving people from not connected to community to being in a community group. Does this become a kind of a lead magnet for them of, man, I never thought about group, but then I did a summer study, and then now I'm signing up for group a few. So it's also like learning when you ideate these things and do these new things, you kind of learn where the momentum is in some of this stuff too. And then you can also begin to think through, well, how does this, how could this grow and how could this fit with the whole of what God's doing and how he's moving here?
Yeah, I would say the last thing that you're kind of speaking to is, and we're just sharing with you guys real time, like we're right in the middle of this, but you just want to evaluate, like there's some people that, and you got to be careful to not do this, but there's some people that's like, man, anytime we do something new, it's like this assumption that we're going to do this forever.
Yeah.
And that's when a church just can get kind of bloated, where you have no doubt. Man, this was a great idea 10 years ago, but we're still doing it. And so you want to evaluate like, hey, is this like a one-off thing where it's like, man, yeah, it served its purpose. That's awesome. And we got to be willing to do that sometimes.
Totally.
Because like one of the things we did this year with Fortify the Family, we did a marriage conference.
Yep. And it went great.
Yeah, it was awesome. But, we're not doing a marriage conference next year.
Yeah.
Maybe we will again.
Yeah, in the future, possibly. Yeah.
But you got to be able to evaluate and say, hey, was this like awesome for this season, or is this something we want to do again? And yeah, I think that's just really important, because you have some people that are like, they become fond of all the stuff, and it's like, man,
it becomes a sacred cow to them.
Yeah, I want to, always do all this stuff. And then, there's other people where it's like the opposite. It's like, man, I don't want to do that again or whatever. So it's like, you got to try the best you can in like a neutral way to evaluate, okay, do we do this again? Do we do it differently? How did it go? Did it accomplish the purpose? Does it need a couple more years?
Yeah.
Man, we need to do this for a couple more years to see the success.
And sometimes it takes that. Sometimes it takes the, hey, man, it was a little rough this year, but I felt like maybe there was a little bit of momentum, but maybe you didn't see a big, huge return. But you're like, man, I think if we button up a couple of these things, if we change a couple of things here and we run this again, that God could use something pretty awesome. And that's kind of leadership, is kind of the gray area of, man, we feel like we're prayed about. We feel like this is worth doing again, or man, we don't feel like it's a great ROI and we're going to go in a different direction next time.
Yeah. So I would love to hear from you guys. The whole point of this, like I said, was not so much the summer studies that we're doing at Mercy Hill, but more like, what does it look like, as your church is established, to try new things?
Yeah.
And I would love to hear from, all the different churches that are associated with Breaking Barriers. Man, if you're not part of our Facebook group, I'd encourage you to go check that out. I would just love to hear some new ideas of, some things you guys have tried.
Yeah.
Because we've said this before, man, we have no issue stealing what you guys are doing and slapping a Mercy Hill bumper sticker on it.
And y'all can do the same.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we share this stuff. We've learned so much. I remember churches that have done some different stuff around Easter, and we heard the ideas. We're like, man, that sounds awesome. Like, let's try it. So that's the point of Breaking Barriers, to kind of learn from each other. So I would just really encourage you guys, if you're not part of that group, join that group. And I would love, even in the coming weeks, maybe to just discuss, some different stuff you guys are doing.